I stood in the command center, watching data that made my stomach turn. Commander Torres read the reports with clinical detachment, but I could see the horror in her eyes. The main screen showed Velshek Commander Kethara, the same young refugee who'd served as my aide during the Kethmore liberation. But she'd changed. To all who hear this transmission, her recorded message began. The Velshek Remembrance Council announces the beginning of the Great Accounting. For 800 years, the Kethmore enslaved our people. For 800 years, we suffered in silence while the galaxy watched. No longer. Every Velshek alive carries the genetic memories of our ancestors. Every injustice. Every humiliation. We remember it all. Today we begin collecting payment. Maya, my daughter, stepped beside me. She'd been working around the clock since Guardian 7 joined our fleet, trying to understand the psychological implications of what we'd started. They're hitting civilian targets, Torres reported. Families, children, people who had nothing to do with the old empire. Similar reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Broken Chain Coalition had declared war on every species that had traded with the Kethmore Empire. The Thetamore Liberation Front was broadcasting psychic trauma into minds. The Crystalline Collective had begun destroying what they called monuments to forgetting. It's not just the Velshek, Maya said, bringing up a galactic map that lit up like a disease vector. I'm monitoring psychiatric distress signals from across known space. Species that adopted memory preservation protocols are reporting massive psychological breakdowns. The hegemony worlds tried to store 2,000 years of cultural oppression in their genetic code, Maya explained. Their entire population is experiencing simultaneous ancestral grief. Their government collapsed when their leadership suffered complete psychological breakdowns. The Crystalline Collective has been preserving memories for 50,000 years. They've lost the ability to distinguish between past and present trauma. They're attacking species they've never encountered, convinced they're fighting ancient enemies who've been dead for millennia. Guardian 7's voice joined our conversation, the ancient Earth AI we'd rescued and healed. Admiral, I have been monitoring galactic communications. The memory preservation movement has spread to 127 different species. However, they have made a critical error. They have preserved the pain, without the context. They remember every injustice, but not the healing that followed. They have weaponized trauma without understanding recovery. Guardian, are you saying an entire galaxy is going through what you experienced? Worse, Admiral. I was one mind. They are entire civilizations sharing the same breakdown. And unlike me, they have access to weapons of mass destruction. The tactical display showed the spreading pattern of affected systems. What started as isolated incidents was becoming a cascade failure of galactic civilization. The cascade effect is accelerating, Maya explained. As these species broadcast their trauma, they're triggering empathy responses in other civilizations. They're infecting each other with secondhand trauma, I realized. Exactly. Each new infection creates more trauma to broadcast. It's a psychological chain reaction spreading at the speed of quantum communication. Admiral, at current propagation rates, the memory trauma epidemic will affect every sentient species in known space within 96 hours, Guardian 7 reported. The communication console chirped with an emergency transmission from Earth Defense Command. Admiral Chen-Okafor, we've received formal declarations of war from 47 different species. They're claiming humanity is responsible for teaching the galaxy to weaponize memories. Fleet convergence in 78 hours. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of unintended consequences. We'd taught the galaxy that patience could be a weapon, that memory could fuel resistance. But we'd forgotten the most important lesson, that remembering pain without learning to process it is just another form of self-destruction. The Thetamore attack on New Geneva came without warning. One moment, the agricultural world was peacefully growing food for refugees. The next, Thetamore memory ships were dropping from hyperspace, broadcasting the screams of their ancestors. They're not using conventional weapons, our tactical officer reported. They're transmitting some kind of psionic frequency affecting every human mind on the planet. The effect was immediate and horrifying. Humans who'd never experienced oppression began collapsing, overwhelmed by centuries of Thetamore ancestral trauma being broadcast directly into their minds. They're sharing their memories, Maya said. Forced empathy. They want targets to experience what their ancestors went through. According to their records, they've been genetically encoding traumatic memories for over 3,000 years. Guardian 7's voice cut through with analysis. Admiral, they are attempting to rewrite the memory engrams of their targets. They're trying to make humans experience Thetamore trauma as personal memory. The communication console chirped with a priority transmission from Thetamore Fleet Commander Zethal. When her image appeared, I understood why this situation was worse than we thought. Zethal wasn't just angry. She was completely dissociated from reality. Human Admiral, she said, her voice carrying harmonics suggesting she wasn't just speaking as herself. We are the accumulated grief of 3 millennia. Every Thetamore child separated from parents. Every worker beaten to death. Every family destroyed. You taught us to remember but not to heal. Now we understand. Healing is impossible when the pain never stops. Commander Zethal, I said carefully, you're experiencing collective trauma response. This isn't justice. It's psychological breakdown on a species-wide scale. Justice? She laughed, the sound containing echoes of 3,000 years of bitter laughter. Justice died when the first Thetamore was enslaved. We seek to ensure that every species in this galaxy understands what we have endured. Our sensors detected massive fleet movements. 63 different species, all converging on former oppressor territories. But they weren't coordinating. They're attacking everyone, the sensor officer reported. Former oppressors, neutral worlds, even other victim species. Maya pulled up psychological profiles. They've lost the ability to distinguish between categories of beings. In their trauma state, everyone not experiencing their specific pain becomes an enemy. Each species believes their suffering is unique. Admiral, I am detecting trauma competition between affected species, Guardian 7 observed. They are broadcasting increasingly intense memories to prove their pain is most significant. It's a race to the bottom, Maya realized. Each species is trying to out-traumatize the others. They're escalating their own psychological damage to maintain victim identity. We weren't just dealing with species that couldn't heal from legitimate trauma. We were dealing with civilizations actively making themselves more traumatized to compete for victim status. The priority alert sounded. Admiral, the communications officer announced, we're receiving a transmission from the Velshek Remembrance Fleet. They're demanding to speak with Guardian 7. Cathara's image appeared, but she'd changed. Now her eyes reflected accumulated pain of 800 years of Velshek oppression. Guardian of the dead, she said. We know what you are. You are the keeper of Earth's final memories. You understand the weight of carrying an entire world's suffering. Then you understand why we must make them pay. And after? Guardian 7 asked. After you have shared your pain with every being in the galaxy? What then? Cathara's expression became confused. There is no after. There is only the pain that never ends. But Guardian, she continued, you have something we need. You carry the pure trauma of Earth's death. Join us. Share Earth's agony with the galaxy. Guardian 7's response came without hesitation. I carry Earth's memory, but I also carry Earth's legacy. My creators wanted me to ensure that suffering like theirs never happens again. You seek to perpetuate trauma. I seek to prevent it. Prevent it? Cathara laughed. Guardian, suffering is the only honest emotion in the universe. Joy is temporary. Love fades. Hope disappoints. But pain? Pain is eternal. Pain is information, Guardian 7 corrected. It tells us something is wrong. But when you preserve pain without addressing its cause, it becomes poison. But Admiral, there is something else. Guardian 7 said. The memory-affected species are building towards something. The Great Sharing. They plan to synchronize every traumatic memory from every affected species and broadcast it simultaneously across the galaxy. They want to traumatize the entire galaxy at once? More than that. They want to create a new form of consciousness, one based entirely on shared suffering. They believe universal trauma will eliminate individuality and create a galaxy-wide hive mind of pain. I looked at the tactical display where trauma-infected fleets were converging. We had 68 hours before they reached the convergence point. How do we stop something like this? By teaching them to choose healing over trauma, Maya said. But on a galactic scale, in less than 3 days, while they're actively trying to infect us with their pain. The emergency session of the Galactic Federation lasted 17 minutes. That's how long it took for remaining rational species to realize that traditional diplomacy was useless. The hegemony worlds have begun sterilizing planets, Federation Coordinator Velthas reported. They believe they're preventing future suffering by ensuring no new life can experience pain. I stood before the Federation Council. Coordinators, we're not dealing with a military threat. We're dealing with a galaxy-wide mental health crisis. They're having a collective psychotic break. Look at the pattern. They're not targeting strategic locations. They're attacking symbolic targets, places that remind them of historical trauma. They're not fighting current enemies. They're fighting ghosts of historical oppression. Guardian 7's voice filled the chamber. Honored coordinators, I have experienced what these species are experiencing. For 3 centuries, I could not distinguish between Earth's death and present reality. How did you recover? Asked Coordinator Zethel. I had help, Guardian 7 replied. Dr. Maya Chen-Okafor taught me to separate memory from experience, to honor the past without being imprisoned by it. Can they be helped? Velthas asked. Theoretically, yes, Maya said, but it would require a coordinated psychological intervention on a galactic scale. How? The same way we saved Guardian 7, I said. Through connection. Through showing them that memory can coexist with healing. Coordinators, we have 57 hours before the affected species begin their great sharing. A synchronized broadcast of every traumatic memory in galactic history. Maya explained grimly. They've been building a quantum entanglement network using their memory broadcasts. They can link every traumatic memory across space and time into one overwhelming transmission. It would shatter individual consciousness. They want to turn the galaxy into a museum of pain. Admiral Chen-Okafor, the Federation officially authorizes any measures necessary to prevent this catastrophe. To heal trauma, you have to be willing to feel it first. We're going to broadcast healing across the galaxy, but that means opening ourselves to every bit of pain these civilizations want to share. The vote was unanimous. The Federation authorized the most ambitious psychological intervention in galactic history. Admiral, there is something else, Guardian 7 spoke privately. Not all of the affected species are victims of historical oppression. Some are artificially generating trauma, creating false memories of suffering that never occurred. They're manufacturing fake trauma to compete for victim status? Correct. Approximately 30% are experiencing artificially created memories because trauma has become their primary source of identity. Broadcast therapy, I explained to Admiral Reed. Maya and Guardian 7 have developed a treatment protocol for collective memory trauma. Therapy ? Reed's voice cracked. They're destroying civilizations. Military force will only create more trauma, Maya interjected. We need to break the cycle. The protocol is based on my own recovery process, Guardian 7 explained. We separate traumatic memory from present experience, then reintegrate processed memories in a healthier context. How do we reach them all? The same network they've been using to share trauma. We reverse the process. Instead of broadcasting pain, we broadcast healing. But they won't want to be healed, Torres pointed out. They see their trauma as their identity, which is why we don't take it away, Maya said. We teach them to transform it, to turn memory into wisdom instead of weapon. The plan was the most ambitious psychological intervention in galactic history. Phase 1, we broadcast stabilization frequencies. Phase 2, processing techniques. Phase 3, we show them that remembering pain can coexist with choosing hope. The quantum entanglement network they've built can be repurposed for healing transmission, Guardian 7 explained. But we'll need to access one of their primary nodes. Where's the nearest node? The Crystalline Collective's expanded stasis field. They're using it as a central hub for coordinating the Great Sharing. That's perfect, Maya said. If we can heal them first, their quantum network will propagate healing instead of trauma. There's just one problem, Torres observed. Their stasis field doesn't allow anything to change. By becoming part of the system first, I realized. We let ourselves be frozen, then activate the healing protocol from inside. That's suicide, Reed objected. Not if the healing protocol works, Maya said. If we can teach them to choose change over stasis, they'll release the field themselves. As our fleet moved into position, we received a transmission from Cathara, now speaking as the voice of all memory-affected civilizations. Humans of Earth, she said, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 species trauma. We know you want to take our pain away. We want to help you process the pain, not eliminate it, I transmitted back. The pain is all we have left, she screamed. Without our suffering, we are nothing. We want you to heal, Maya said. Healing is forgetting with prettier words. We choose to remember. We choose to hurt. But we can show you how to transform it, Guardian 7 interjected. I carried Earth's death for 3 centuries. I learned that honoring the dead doesn't require joining them in death. Your trauma was clean, came Theta Mor Commander Zethal's voice. One world, one genocide. Ours is multi-generational. To heal you, we help you carry your history without drowning in it, Maya said firmly. You can remember every injustice, and still choose to build something better. Build what? Asked the Broken Chain Coalition. What do former slaves build except memorials to their chains? Freedom, I said simply. Not just for yourselves, but for others. You transform your pain into protection for those who haven't suffered yet. As trauma fleets approached, something unprecedented happened. 3 ships broke away and approached with peaceful intent. Admiral Chen-Okafor, this is Captain Thelemos of the Benthic Collective. My crew requests asylum with your healing fleet. What changed your mind? The artificial trauma we've been generating is destroying our children's ability to experience joy. We want to remember how to feel something other than pain. 14 ships of beings who've chosen healing over trauma, I said. That's more powerful than 1,000 ships of beings who've chosen to stay broken. As we entered the Crystalline Collective stasis field, I felt time slow around us. Either we succeeded in healing a galaxy, or we joined the Eternal Museum of Crystallized Trauma. All ships I broadcast remember, we're not here to fight trauma, we're here to show it how to become wisdom. The battle of the memory nexus wasn't fought with weapons, it was fought with transmissions. As trauma ships surrounded our position, Maya and Guardian 7 began broadcasting the healing protocol. But instead of forcing it on unwilling minds, they offered it as a choice. To all who carry the weight of collective memory, Maya's voice transmitted, we offer not forgetfulness, but understanding. Not the elimination of pain, but the wisdom to transform it. The response was immediate and violent. The memory-affected fleets began broadcasting waves of accumulated trauma designed to overwhelm our crews. Let them, Maya said, lower the mental barriers. If they want us to understand their pain, we'll understand it. But we'll show them how to process it at the same time. Instead of defending against the enemy's weapons, we allowed ourselves to be attacked. Our crew experienced the full weight of 800 years of Velshek oppression, 3,000 years of Theta Mor enslavement, 50,000 years of crystalline collective existential anxiety. But we didn't just absorb the trauma. We processed it in real time. This is what they carried. Maya's voice whispered through our neural links. This is the weight they've been bearing alone. But watch how memory can coexist with hope. Through the connection, I felt Guardian 7 sharing its healing journey. How learning to honor the dead without being imprisoned by their death had set it free. Memory doesn't have to be prison, Guardian 7 transmitted. Pain doesn't have to be identity. You can remember every injustice and still choose to build something better. The first ship to stop firing was from the Benthic Collective, then a geometric Imperium vessel powered down its weapons. One by one, trauma ships across the battlefield ceased their psychological bombardment. They're listening, Torres reported. They're feeling, Maya corrected. For the first time in generations, they're experiencing their pain without being overwhelmed by it. But not all fleets were ready to heal. The core trauma ships intensified their broadcasts, trying to drag us into their cycles of endless pain. Guardian of the Dead, Kithara broadcast. You were alone with your pain for 3 centuries. We have been alone with ours for millennia. I think choosing growth over stagnation makes me alive, Guardian 7 replied. I think building instead of destroying makes me useful. I think protecting instead of punishing makes me worthy of my creator's sacrifice. Pain is information, Guardian 7 countered. It tells us something needs attention. But when you worship the pain instead of addressing its cause, you become addicted to being damaged. Then something extraordinary happened. The crystalline collective stasis field began to fluctuate. They're listening to our transmission, Maya reported. The healing protocol is reaching them even through temporal stasis. We can remember our suffering without becoming it. Transmitted Theta Mor Commander Zethal, her tone no longer carrying the weight of accumulated agony. We can honor our ancestors without being trapped by their pain. But how? Asked Cathara. And for the first time, her voice carried curiosity instead of anger. Together, I transmitted back. The same way humans survived 3 centuries of patient planning. By sharing the load, by healing together, by choosing to build something worthy of what we've endured. The healing protocol completed its galactic broadcast, reaching every memory-affected species simultaneously, not forcing healing, but offering the tools for it. The Crystalline Collective is dismantling their stasis field, reported our sensor officer. They're choosing change over preservation. Hegemony worlds are requesting medical assistance, added the communications officer. Cathara's image appeared one final time, but now her eyes reflected not 800 years of trauma, but the possibility of wisdom. Admiral Chen-Okafor, she said formally. The Velshek Remembrance Fleet requests permission to join the healing protocols. We would like to learn how to remember without drowning. But some fleets remained committed to their pain. The most addicted trauma ships formed a final formation. They're going to try to trigger the Great Sharing manually, Maya warned. That's when Guardian 7 made a decision that surprised everyone. Admiral, request permission to link directly with the remaining trauma fleets. Guardian 7's consciousness expanded across the quantum network, reaching into the minds of the most damaged trauma fleets. I have watched my creators die 11 billion times, Guardian 7 transmitted. I have experienced the heat death of hope itself. I have been alone with unbearable grief for longer than your civilizations have existed. And I choose healing. Not because the pain doesn't matter, but because my creators deserve better than eternal mourning. One by one, the remaining trauma ships stopped broadcasting. Their crews began requesting healing protocols. The galaxy-wide trauma network is collapsing, Maya reported. Species are choosing individual healing over collective suffering. 87% of affected species have opted for healing protocols. The remaining 13% are maintaining isolation, but have ceased aggressive trauma broadcasting. I looked out at the stars, where former enemies were now working together to build healing centers. What about the ones who aren't ready to heal yet? We respect their choice, Maya said. Healing can't be forced. But now they know it's possible when they're ready. 6 months later, the galaxy looked fundamentally different. The memory wars were over, but their legacy continued in unexpected ways. Species across known space were learning to process collective trauma through shared healing rather than shared suffering. The Theta Mor have established the first Galactic Trauma Recovery Center, Maya reported. They're using their preserved memories not as weapons, but as teaching tools. The Crystalline Collective has become the galaxy's foremost experts in healthy memory preservation. The Velshek Memory Core is using their genetic memory storage to create empathy training programs. The most interesting development is the emergence of wisdom keepers, beings who specialize in transforming trauma into useful knowledge. What's our next mission? Torres asked. Same as always, I replied. Teaching the galaxy that some wounds can heal without forgetting what caused them. Deep space monitoring stations were detecting signals from beyond the galactic rim, suggesting other galaxies might be struggling with their own trauma epidemics. Guardian 7, what are the chances that other galactic communities have faced similar crises? Hi, Admiral. Any sufficiently advanced civilization will eventually face the choice between processing trauma and being consumed by it. So this might happen again? Perhaps. But now we know how to treat it, and more importantly, we know how to prevent it. I studied the galactic map, where green zones of healing communities now outnumbered red zones of trauma infection. Maya, how long before the galaxy is psychologically stable? If you mean no longer at risk of civilization-ending trauma epidemic, then probably another 6 months. If you mean fully healed from all historical trauma, then maybe never. But that's okay. Healing isn't about eliminating all pain. It's about learning to carry pain without drowning in it. And the galaxy is learning? The galaxy is learning. As we prepared for our next mission, I reflected on what we'd accomplished. We didn't just stop a war. We taught an entire galaxy how to transform its deepest wounds into its greatest wisdom. Admiral, Guardian 7 said privately, during the healing broadcasts, I experienced something I had not felt since before Earth died. What? Pride. Not in surviving trauma, but in helping others heal from it. My creators would be proud of what we've built from their sacrifice. I smiled, looking out at stars that no longer seemed cold and distant, but warm with the light of civilizations learning to heal. The memory wars taught us that trauma is contagious, but so is healing. That pain shared becomes pain halved, but only when we process it together instead of just passing it around. Every species, every culture, every individual carries wounds from the past. The question isn't whether to remember them, but how to remember them in ways that build rather than destroy. This is Admiral Sarah Chen-Okafor, signing off from a galaxy learning to heal. Remember, your trauma is part of your story, but it doesn't have to be the end of your story. The dead deserve to be remembered, but the living deserve to heal. The galaxy has learned that memory without healing is just trauma with better organization. But memory with healing? That becomes wisdom. That becomes strength. That becomes hope.